YouTube, which says we're live now, so I think we're good to go. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Just verify we're up and running before we jump into it.
YouTube's good. Facebook's good.
All right. Instagram's taking its sweet time, but it's going to be live soon.
Okay. Just
Maybe.
getting
Yeah, I'm just trying to
up and running here if you guys are joining us.
Instagram's doing its thing here.
And we're live on two of the...
We got two of them. It says we're live, but I can't. Let me try my phone. Something.
Instagram.
Yep. There it is. Yep, we're good.
All right. Welcome to the 034 Motorsport live chat, episode 219. We're here to answer all your hot burning questions about all things 034. I also call this the Zero Bullshit Q&A, because we like to take a very direct approach to responding to your questions. Shoot us any questions about anything you'd like to know about, any 034 Motorsport products or services, any general automotive knowledge, frankly, anything else. Company history, our philosophy, love talking about that stuff. If you're asking questions about when something is going to be done or updated, we may not respond. We will deprioritize those questions in favor of real juicy questions we can dig into. Yeah, and that's why we're here. We do record these, and so if you don't have a chance to watch the whole thing, you can come back later today and watch this. And then we do add chapters and topics as well throughout, typically a day or two after. And then we also do clip outs of these onto our 034 Uncut channel. And so we do topical clip outs. So if you're just bored or intellectually stimulated, you can go click on, they're pretty short. You know, some of them are 2 to 3 minutes, up to like 5 to 10 minutes at the most. So about specific topics that you'd like to know about. Put your questions into the browser comment field of your choice. Whether you're on Instagram, it says Instagram's not live.
It's live on mobile, but it just doesn't work on.
Their website is freaking out. That's what I was trying to validate on here, but it is certainly working
live on mobile, so hopefully.
Yep. So that's, I mean, kind of its intended audience. So I guess it's working there at least. But yeah, there's nothing. It's not on our end.
Apparently, it's working, so we should be okay. Yeah. So let's jump into some questions as they're coming in. Someone says, "Happy holidays to you, Javad and team." Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Happy holidays to you as well. Hopefully, you can have some nice plans for this week. It's one of those years where like Christmas and New Year's are like on Wednesday,
right in the middle of the week. Yeah,
it really destroys both weeks and slows things down, which is always nice. B9 S5 at 30,000 miles. What maintenance should I do? I think factory maintenance.
Yeah, I mean, I'd stick to the book. I mean, it's going to depend heavily on what you've got for mods in the car, if any. But yeah, the factory schedule will be, I mean, if you're lightly modded or at all, should keep you in mind.
B8.5 S5. I've installed your rear sway bar and rear end links. I need to replace my front sway bar end links, but want to retain the rear drive bias. Shouldn't I keep the OEM front bar and install only your front end links? Yes, You've got it right.
Yep, you know it.
We do offer a bigger front sway bar now for people who are more concerned with flat cornering and less concerned with handling dynamics and having a more lively rear end. Since you like that handling dynamic, then do not buy our... It's not often you'll hear a company say don't buy our product, but don't buy our front sway bar, but definitely do our front end links. That will just allow the front bar to react quickly. And if you have any preload in the front bar, you can take it out too. And our end links are just really durable. But yeah, you're going to keep that rear bias by not messing with your front bar.
Yeah, personally as well, I run just our rear bar as well because I like a very neutral to tail happy car.
Definitely helps get the car rotated coming into a corner.
Yeah, it's very throttle steerable.
Yeah. just installed your billet rear main seal, and it was completely painless, including the install. Including the install guide is top notch as well. Oh, great to hear.
Yep.
We saw a lot of those, and it's been it's a little controversial when we released it, but it's been tremendous positive feedback from customers just like this. Recommendations for a 4MQ7 heat exchanger. Well, we are dealing with this right now. The stock one is actually quite big, substantially bigger than the S4 unit.
Yeah.
As such, you can do a lot with the stock heat exchanger, even on stage 2. The cars don't seem to heat soak right away like they do on S4s. We are working on bringing an upgraded unit to market, so I would recommend waiting for whatever we come up with. Good news is the stock one is a decent performer that will keep you cooled well, until that happens. But the unit we release will be massive, even substantially bigger than our S4 heat exchanger, which is very big. Best mods for MK8 R, S5 after intake, intercooler, and E85. Strongly recommend our springs and sway bars and inserts. Modifications like our dog bone mount and inserts are going to greatly improve the control of the engine from bouncing around under power and acceleration and the transition of power. And usually pretty minimal NVH, well worth it for what you get as in benefits. But yeah, just the sway bars and springs are going to just really make the car feel locked down. And then our camber caster front strut mounts will also give you that additional camber in the front, and that really helps with grip and turn-in and everything. Would you guys open up a location in Northern California or rather North Bay area? We would like to open a third ZTF service location. Definitely like in the East Bay somewhere, or like say Oakland area, kind of up in that region, because we service this kind of Fremont corridor well. And then we have the San Jose location. So yeah, it would be more north. I'm not sure when we'll do that. Our San Jose location has been running for 3 years now, and it's doing very well. It's at full capacity, and it's doing great. So we do want to open a third location. So yeah, definitely something to look out for in the future. Stage 2 plus for CREC. I can't wait. I've been looking forward to it. Are you guys still working on that?
Yep. Yes, actively right now.
Yeah, we are. Definitely coming along. Mary Chrysler. Is there ever a situation on the B9 3.0T that fuel trims being above 1.12 is normal, say when hovering, applying light load at high RPM?
High RPM, light load. I mean, I could see if you've got some like transitional, that's usually a pretty hard to maintain like a real steady state position. So maybe there's some just quick transitional stuff that it's catching up with. But if you're talking like an instant in time where you see like a 12% or whatever fluctuation, or I don't know if it's a 1.12% or 12%, maybe 12%. So
yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't call it abnormal. It would depend on the situation. We'd have to see the data around it though. These map-based cars can be a little more, deviation on those, especially on real fast transients like that. So yeah, without data, it's really hard to know. But I mean, it'll throw. I mean, if things are off, you'll generally get a code for long-term trims and whatnot that are trying to catch up.
These kind of questions are always a little tricky, because when you're taking one piece of data out of context of all the rest of the data, it's hard to draw a conclusion. When you do a log, every piece of data in that log exists with other data that it fully or more thoroughly explains what the engine was doing at that time. So it would be kind of like if we were talking about food and you're like, it was red. Like, well, that's okay. Well, what other data about the food was there other than that one piece, right? So just one piece of data doesn't explain the whole situation. Just like one word about a plate of food wouldn't describe anything really useful about that plate of food. So you always need to look at data in relation to all the rest of the data. This is just like any other kind of statistical data. You could say something's 8%. Well, in what context? Have you guys seen any evidence of Costco 93 octane fuel being bad or causing knock? IE has claimed they've seen this when I sent them logs on my B8 2.0 on stage 2 with some fairly high knock.
I have not.
No, I've never heard of this. I say this all the time, that I think when you hear a tuner blame a running condition on bad fuel, you should just be skeptical. Fuel is a very precisely manufactured product, guided and managed by strict government regulations. Fuel refineries that make fuel are, world-class, highly effective engineering facility and production facilities. So they don't just make a lot of bad gas, and I honestly have never had a bad tank. I've personally, anecdotally, can't say I've ever had one.
We've definitely talked about this a bunch.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something you can obviously really easily A/B test. You can run it down to empty and go fill up somewhere else and see if it's dramatically different.
But this is what I always say is that the only times I've seen any issues with gas is if like the gas station fucks up and puts the wrong gas in the wrong tank or something. And I've honestly seen that once in my career.
Yeah.
Which was somebody put instead of E85, they put like diesel.
Yeah, it was a really bad mess.
Yeah.
It was not even close.
And the cars that pumped this quote unquote E85 were essentially totaled. And so we actually ended up replacing the engines in a number of these cars because it was local, and a lot of our customers used it. There was some warranty
lawsuit.
They ended up paying to have these, but engines had to be replaced.
Yeah, I mean, so, I could, obviously mistakes happen. That happened. I could see maybe in isolated cases here and there that could be a thing, but to just go out and say like Costco 93 in particular is subpar, I would be surprised if that was something that's allowed to happen based on, like Joe said, all the federal regulations and whatnot around it.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is Costco is just a business that buys and sells things. They don't have anything to do with fuel.
They're not
right. So there is some real company fulfilling their fuel for that. I don't know who it is. I'm sure you can go online and find out where Costco is getting their fuel and who's running that part of their business for them. Costco also doesn't know really anything about most of the things they sell. So you probably know something about rotisserie chickens and pizza.
They're good at those,
they make that. Sure. I mean, I don't say they're experts on it. There's 5 ingredients.
For a $5 chicken, though?
Yeah.
In a good spot.
But yeah, so I think that's, if our support people were saying that, I would say the same thing. I was like, guys.
I know they've used it as like a diagnostic thing when people will say like something has changed. So like,
It could be worth going and getting another tank of gas and seeing, but I'm just saying it's a very, very astronomically rare thing to get a bad tank of fuel. It's just not a thing. Very, very rare.
All right.
Yeah. I have a 034 Motorsport intake and tune on my MK8 GTI. Great products and enjoy my car a lot more now. I also just installed a 034 Motorsport sway bar this morning. Great products. Oh, glad to hear. Yeah, I mean, I think our support team, so there's a follow-up here. Our support team will sometimes ask customers to test another tank of fuel and log it again just to see if anything changes as kind of a diagnostic tool. But I would not be okay with us going around saying that there's a lot of bad tanks and gas out there.
No, we're trying to isolate variables and get data around. That's what I was saying before. The earlier comment about trims is like we need to see data to know what things are doing. If it's a global thing or if it is
It's definitely worth
a
testing,
legit.
but to blame it on that is it's problematic. It's
Some people are commenting on like Midwest winters and stuff. There are winter blends. That's a little different thing.
yeah, that's not a bad tank. I
Yeah.
guess. And even then, I don't think we've ever been able to tell people don't use this blend of gas. You know, we've never had that. Recommended maintenance for my B8.5 S5 with 56,000 miles. Looking to go do pulley soon. We talk about this one a lot. You know, in addition to the regular maintenance, like making sure you have good plugs and a good oil change and things like that. I think 56,000 is not a lot of miles. So, you know, when they get up there, though, definitely the intercooler bricks can leak. You know, the factory cats can start to melt. So anything water pump stuff. Yeah. On my B9 S5, boost set point versus actual boost is off by 3 psi between 4 and 5,000 RPMs. Is this normal?
I would need to double check on the exact variables being logged on that setup, but yeah, I wouldn't say it's abnormal to see that. If we are logging on some of these data groups, it'll be the the pressure up throttle value versus the actual intake manifold set point. Those can certainly vary a little bit for a number of reasons, but so that's very well maybe what you're seeing. You'll get, again, as I said before, we're pretty tight on our fault checking and boost control deviation allowance, so you'll get a code if it's out of whack. But if you've got any questions, certainly shoot us a log and we can take a look at it to see if it is normal.
Yeah, log's the best way to determine that. We were talking about that again last week too. Bought your stage 1 ECU TCU for my B8.5 S5 with the S34 intake. Car absolutely rips. Should I be worried about excess heat for my cats? Well, great to hear you're happy. I think stage 1 isn't too hard on the cats.
No.
The cats do fail even stock. Somewhat prematurely compared to some other applications.
It's by far the most premature catalyst we see in the VAG market.
Yeah, so it's something to keep an eye out for if you ever feel anything change with your car. If you feel like the car is slower or struggling, or feels like it's driving in mud, or you get codes for anything, take caution with the B8. You do not want to keep running that hard with a plugged cat or something.
Yeah, and we give you all the data to kind of know that up front. You'll get fault codes, you get Optimus fires obviously as a symptom, but we do allow you to capture that data. And, we can look at it, you can look at it, all that. So it's staying on top of that stuff is critical, stock or tuned.
Saw your new A9091 Supra rotors. Will you guys be getting deeper into the A9091 Supra market? I don't think we have real solid plans to do that. In this case, a Supra is basically a BMW underneath. So we are doing BMW products, and these happen to also fit the Supra. So that was kind of a freebie for the Supra market. That sounds a lot like supermarket.
It's tough to suit the Supra market.
Currently not a lot more plans unless something BMW that we do fits it. It is outside of kind of the German market that we typically are known for, but they are cool cars, and I don't know. We like I always say, we like to create and sell parts that people want, and so if there's a bunch of Supra market people that would love our products, then great. Definitely something we would consider. So feel free to send us your requests. Always happy to consider it. Let's see. From a handling standpoint, is it worth getting a front sway bar for the 8.5 RS3? I currently have your rear bar and front and rear end links. Yes, for that platform specifically, that MQB platform, we do recommend the front bar. It does not make the car push more. That that platform, which is MQB based, from the GTI to the Golf R, the S3, the RS3, all benefit really nicely from our full sway bar and spring package, as well as inserts and camber caster plates. It is eerie how well those cars turn once they're set up right.
Yeah, alignment is a huge factor.
And with a good alignment, which we list some information on our product page about the work that we did on our in-house TTRS and AV and RS3. We list even the alignment specs and stuff for you there. So yeah, I strongly recommend that. Bought my B9 Stage 2 tune without intercooler and downpipe. Should expect more performance once I upgrade and get an intercooler and bigger downpipe done. Yes.
Yeah, but you should flash the stage 1 file.
Yeah, you should be running stage 1 right now.
Yep.
If you didn't say anything about an intake, but an intake, intercooler, and downpipe would get you the full stage 2 power difference. But even, like we always say, about 3/4 of the difference between stage 1 and stage 2 is from the intake and intercooler. So, but yeah, you should flash back to stage 1 until you have the downpipe and intercooler. Those are required mods for that stage. You don't want to. You're not necessarily getting any benefit by being on stage 2 and
Not at all.
pushing things harder than we would recommend.
Yep. No, stage 1 file. Run the right tune for the hardware you've got on hand.
Yeah.
We list the required mods for a reason.
And as always, we strongly recommend being familiar with your tuning product page and adhering to our recommendations and requirements for the tune. Do you have a ported blower file for the B8 S4 S5?
We do not have a specific ported blower file. Generally, what a ported blower gets you is a little bit more efficiency across the blower. That efficiency translates really well already at the sensors that are after the blower that the ECU is using for load and the air temps and all the determination of air mass getting into the motor. So all that is done after the blower. So those efficiency increases you see from the blower are already being accounted for. If this is like maybe a MAF based or sensors or before the blower, before the change of maybe there'd be a more reason for it, but we haven't seen a need to do a customized file for a ported blower that I've come across yet. So.
Yeah, like Nate said, it's the ECU can accommodate for those flow changes. There's really it would be kind of a gimmick to have.
Ultimately, what you're trying to do is figure out the given air mass for your charge getting into your cylinder. That's what you need to account for your fuel, your timing, and air temps and all that for the volatility. So all that is already being measured and quite accurately already. So there's not a reason to go in and make one better or worse when it's already there and being measured.
Yeah. Just a shout out to Alex and the team. They made it right by giving me the retroactive sale price on the radiator I ordered before the sale, but didn't ship until the sale. So thank you. It's fitted. I'll keep you guys up to
Oh, that's awesome.
Great to hear. Glad you're happy. We're always willing to make those accommodations, and it's not your fault. It's only fair. So.
Yeah, we're not evil corporate overlords. We just want to do right is by everybody.
Mm-hmm. Is on the B9 S4, are there any differences in the D transmission mode on the car when it's in dynamic, auto, and comfort?
And it's in dynamic, auto, and comfort.
Drive, yeah.
Gosh,
I
need to look back at that. I don't off the top of my head. There are a ton of driver charisma maps that will affect the actual shifting rate on that. Not just by charisma. So charisma mode is your drive dynamic or auto. It'll determine what mode you try and go into. But there's additionally a driver aggression map that gets applied in there depending on your driving style. I would have to look. I would have to refresh on that if that gets increased just being on dynamic mode versus auto. But chances are good there's a slight change. It's probably not very dramatic, but it might more actively start getting you into the more aggressive mapping for the shift points and speeds.
You think Audi's going to update that to driver Riz
mode?
Riz mode? I think they should. Just to keep up, so most people are going to know what charisma is.
The new generations of engineers coming through determine that.
And then will there be a Gyat mode, you think?
Is it G-Max mode?
Thinking of getting a tune switch. Great. Well, hit us up. We do offer.
That's the only comment.
discounts.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, we,
Yeah.
we offer discounts if you've already got a competitor's file, and we will.
As,
Hopefully,
as always, we have a 30-day money back guarantee as well. So
you want to make sure it's what you want.
Someone's asking about a front brake kit release for the C8 S6. I can't say off the top of my head where that's at. Stay tuned. Hi, Javon and Nate. I'm just interested to know what Nate's Audi B8 S4 exhaust setup is. We get asked that a lot on YouTube.
It is a difficult to recreate setup. It is a AWE track setup. Oh my god, I got to figure out the right combination. I actually bought that used, but it is very packed out, blown out mufflers, so it kind of is not something you really off the shelf put together. And currently on track, it was running the some real basic headers for testing. So that's, yeah, the last videos you saw, that was likely what was on there.
Yeah. I'm saying definitely the best A4 stage one on the market. Great to hear. The market response to that tune has been incredible. Sorry it took us so long to get it to market, but I think the reason one of the reasons it's so good is we had so much time developing it. From working on it to then not working on it to working on it again. And a lot of times when you are working on something and you put it down for a few months and then you work on it again, you find new things that didn't occur to you or you missed the first time. Just like if you write an email and then you wait a day and you go back and read it again, you're never going to send that original email. You're always going to change and update it. So I think it results in a lot longer lead time, but the tune is very good, and we are working on
we got more
the next sentence. It says JHM ECS or 034 207 millimeter pulley. Which should I choose? Definitely.
We're a little biased.
Yeah,
not gonna lie.
I don't have any experience with the other brands, which are perfectly good brands. No issues with either of those. However, I know ours is great. And I know how many we've sold, and I know that it's a very good product that you'll be happy with, and it will do exactly what you want, and it will give you long-term reliability and performance and satisfaction. Looks like we got number 8. Why does boost start to fall after like 5,000 RPM on stock turbo, and it keeps climbing until redline on TE810 for a B9.5 T? Yeah, that's a direct function of the size of the turbo and the amount of air it's able to flow. So you can think about there is a flow curve or map for the turbo, and there's a flow curve or map for the engine. And as you can surmise, as an engine revs higher, it sucks in more air. That's because every combustion event requires a certain unit of air to create combustion. If you do 3,000 of those in a minute, you use 3,000 units of air. If you do 6,000 in a minute, you use 6,000 units of air. So even though the efficiency of the motor falls off, it's ingesting more mass air at higher RPMs than lower RPMs. So you have an engine that's flowing more as it revs up, and you have a turbo that can flow a certain amount of air ever. So it has a maximum flow, which at a certain point, it cannot flow anymore. The flow of the turbo is directly related to the boost it can produce. So when you have an engine that's revving using more and more air as it revs up, and you have a turbo that can hit its flow limit, then at lower RPMs where airflow is lower, it can produce a lot of boost, right? A lot of flow with a lot of boost. That high boost is supported by a certain amount of flow. But as the engine hits a point where the turbo can no longer flow more, then the boost has to drop to sustain any amount of pressure that the turbo can produce. I was trying to think while I was talking about this. I was trying to think of an analogy, and I didn't come up with anything super definitive. But yeah, the turbo, let's say, can produce 500 horsepower worth of air, but the engine can outflow that. So the amount of boost goes up and then down. Now, when you make the turbo bigger and you increase the flow limit, that higher level boost can be supported all the way to redline. And so what you see with turbo like the A10 is its maximum flow limit is matched nicely to the flow limit of the engine. And so as the engine hits its maximum flow, so is the turbo, and they both produce peak power at the same time, and that boost level can be maintained quite well all the way to redline. The bigger the turbo you have, the more flow it can produce, the more easily that turbo can maintain a very high level of boost all the way to redline. The stock turbo just can only produce that level of flow up to about 4,500, 5,000 RPM, and then that boost starts dropping.
Yeah, the turbo is going to sit at that same flow while the engine's going to need more.
Yeah,
about the same. So you've got to reduce the pressure to maintain that level of flow.
Yeah. For some reason, there's a metaphor about a sausage making machine and the density of the sausages coming out. But it's I'll have to mold that.
You have to noodle that a little more.
Yeah. Great question, though.
Yeah.
Very good question.
It's a tough one that a lot of people, without knowing kind of the physics behind it all, don't easily grasp.
If you would ever like to understand more about turbochargers and how they work, I would strongly recommend reading a book called Maximum Boost by Corky Bell. I think I read that book in the late 90s.
Yeah, it's an older book, but all of the fundamentals are obviously still going to be very applicable.
It holds up, and even though it seems kind of basic, if you have a mastery of everything in that book, you could become like a turbocharger engineer.
Yeah, you'll be in a good spot to understand.
Yeah, you could certainly do tuning, like we have done.
Yeah, I would say other than some obviously like aerodynamic efficiencies and whatnot on the turbos haven't changed fundamentally.
How they work hasn't changed,
especially on these cars where we're not dealing with variable vanes or anything like that. It's just a turbo and a base cake and variable vanes. Yeah, because their VT stuff was certainly around.
That's truck stuff going back to the 80s.
But yeah, I mean, turbos have just gotten the modeling's gotten better. The design systems around them have gotten better, but the fundamentals are all identical.
They all work the same.
The engines are transforming themselves around that turbo, with variable cams, variable lift, variable, everything. But yeah, the fundamentals of the turbocharging process is still dead on.
Someone's asking if we're working on B9 stage 2 files.
On the A4? Absolutely.
Yeah, and there's another question down here. Please don't make the stage 2 burbles on B9 A4 longer than 2 seconds. Once you guys come out with stage 2 85, I want to switch from IE simply because they're 5 to second burbles or overrun.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we'll consider that. There's a lot of opinions on burbles. I personally agree with you. If I was running burbles, I'd want like a couple pops, and that's about it.
And generally, all of our stuff, we're going to keep it so you can select whether you want them on or not.
Yeah, you can turn them on.
It's not something you'll be forced to deal with. Even on the B8, which never had the factory systems, we let you switch it.
Yeah. 150,000 miles on my B9 A4. Should I do transmission adaptation after TCU tune?
I almost never have found a need to. All of our calibrations are well within what the TCU is expecting. All of the torque's being modeled correctly. All that's being accounted for. So the transmission adaptation shouldn't really change much, away from what the stock adaptation already is. So no, I haven't seen a need to go through and require everybody to go through and run adaptations on the transmission. It's not a bad idea. You can do, if you can get it'll generally won't hurt anything. You can get maybe a little tighter engagement points and shift fork calculations, and it's been forever since.
It can't hurt to do an adaptation.
Yeah, right? But we've never explicitly required it.
Installed my stage 1 tune 2 days ago. Awesome performance and mobile flashing was very easy. Thanks. Very good to hear. Awesome. That's the goal. Will CREC A6 get advanced launch control in the future?
Possibly. It is definitely more interesting with the supercharger, with the, I'm sorry, not the supercharger, with the automatic transmission to do it versus the DSGs. So, yeah, potentially.
Yeah. Someone's asking about KLi-Max TCU for AL551.
Yep, that is on our development list.
We're working on that.
We're working on those.
Question about 2022 plus TCU.
Yeah,
tuning.
people are asking, exactly why it's not tunable. We've touched on this before. So there's with all of these different controllers, engine or transmission, the factories do a lot of work to make sure that no one can flash it ever. It's they're all locked to some degree since the early '90s.
Yeah.
So getting around that initially is step one, to be able to load whatever calibration changes and or software change, whatever it is. You want to put your data onto that control unit somehow. Um, the factory does all kinds of different measures to try and prevent that, whether it's just encryption or all these different signatures, digital signatures and certifications and whatnot that have to be done to that block of data before it's allowed to be accepted into the ECU. So to do any of these flashing, we have to get around that and hack our way in or crack your way around the fact that you find some exploit that the factory didn't know about, and meander your way around that to get your code base in there so that now it's running your software.
A window that someone left.
It's a window. It's an exploit in there that they didn't know about, and in some cases, they will come back and close those doors. And sometimes a lot of these exploits or doors are left open because it's a that's not their primary job they're doing with these control units. It's a barrier of entry, but they're not maybe sitting there doing all of their development work, making sure nothing can get in and everything's buttoned up as tight as it can be. But once they come around and maybe they're putting a much more effort into sealing up all those doors, for their update coming along the line. Audi may have not been happy with Bosch that somebody got around the encryption that Bosch had implemented, and Bosch made a more valiant effort to go ahead and fix it. So we've got another level of exploits and security and cracking that has to be done to get around that. So it's one of those things. It's a moving target. You've got to try and get in there. It's nothing to do with a technical reason why we can't map or flash these things. It's all about getting the code onto the controller. We have all the stock files. We have all the calibrations ready to go. It's a matter of just getting it repeatedly, at an end user stable level loaded onto the controller. So we're working on it, but it's a moving target, and not a easy to define level of difficulty depending on what they change and how they change it.
Mm-hmm. Follow up to the bad gas, B8 S4, summer 93, no knock. Winter 93, 5 to 5.5 degrees of knock. 91 file with winter 93, no knock. Well, that's good information.
Yep.
That's not bad fuel. That just means that it's a different blend that may have, in practice, a lower octane.
Right.
And so if the question is the winter gas blend running differently than the summer gas blend, that's very possible, yes. And we know that refineries reformulate gasoline between the summer and the winter for emissions reasons. In the winter, there's a reversion layer that holds smog and emissions in cities more than it does in the summer. And you can read about this online. I'm not a gasoline expert, but it is possible that it's not bad gas, but it's a formulation that it has in practice a lower octane. So by recommending a 91 file, I think that's valid. But I think there's a difference between a tuner saying you have a bad tank of gas and a tuner saying we believe that this formulation of fuel has a lower effective octane and you should run this file until the reformulation changes. That's different. Thanks for the follow-up.
Yeah.
We would also look over logs and make these recommendations in the same way based on the data.
Yeah, I know. And we've got a lot of Midwest folk with or cold climate folk that do run winter gas, and I don't know that I've seen a blanket example of that. So I don't know.
Right. I'm not sure. I'm not aware of an instance where we've seen that. I haven't heard of it. I don't know of everything that goes on in tuning support, but I also think the tune making 5-degree corrections isn't the end of the world either, as long as there's not.
It's going to depend, right, what it looks like in the logs.
Yeah.
And that's a real tough thing to a single data point or a reference make any kind of suggestions on.
Just realized my car has a leaking high pressure fuel pump. How dangerous is that to the engine? Should I upgrade to your high pressure fuel pump? Well, I'd like to know what kind of leak you have, but yes, that's very
do not run the motor if you've got a leaking high pressure pump. You can again, it depends where it's leaking, but if it's an internal leak, you can do some.
We have seen
some damage for
blown motors that where the engine filled with fuel. Fuel is a very bad lubricator,
yep.
And caused the bearings in the engine to go bad. So if you believe you have any leak, I would, like Nate said, stop driving the car and make sure you can correct it. We don't have any problems with our pumps leaking, so certainly our pump would be a great solution, but I would just recommend that you get it fixed quickly. You could also check your oil, open your oil cap. It will always smell a little bit like gas, but if it smells very strong like gas, then it could mean that it's leaking into your crankcase, which is very disastrous. You also don't want it leaking on the outside, which could obviously catch fire, things like that. What are your thoughts on bottled fuel injection cleaners? We talk about this. I think some of the factory stuff is worth doing. We do sell the factory Audi fuel injector cleaners. There is a lot of snake oil out there. You buy a bottle of something, you have no idea what's in it. We're also very skeptical on octane boosters. I would not recommend those. They're not a valid tuning solution to increasing the octane of your fuel. So stay away from octane boosters. Certainly, if you have a 93 file and you're running 93 fuel and you want to put in some octane booster, I think that's probably okay. Sometimes people are like, can I run 91 with an octane booster and run the 93 file? It's like, no, you cannot do that. But yeah, we sell the factory Volkswagen cleaners. Those are tested and used by the factory, and I would recommend those as part of a good maintenance schedule for any engine. How high do oil temps get on stage 193 for the B9.5 T? Stock sits around 195. Nate, do you want to?
Sorry, I was reading
Number 5.
Number 5. It's going to really depend on your driving situation.
Yeah,
it's
the load.
Stock. It's going to hover, mid to low 200s. 200 to 220, 230 is probably really going to be your normal cruise. If you're doing like lots of hill climb stuff, lots of like sustained load and on track, I want to say like 250 to 270 is probably not abnormal to see. But yeah, it's thermostatically controlled, so it's gonna get up to a certain point, just to get all of the moisture and vapor out of the crankcase. So like 220 is probably gonna be a really normal temperature for the most part. Sits around 195. Yeah, I mean that's right in that range for super light load.
Okay. I just want to address this real quick. We don't have a lot to say about this currently, but there is this situation, and somebody is asking about it with AwesomeGTi. They posted a video today. They've had a series going, building a stage 3 B9 S4 with all 034 products. And I think it started on stage 1 flash and has gone up to stage 3. They've had our full stage 3 TT810 on their car for a while now. The video makes it look like something happens on the first pull. I haven't seen the video, but I can tell you that's not accurate. That car has been running for a while and has many pulls and races and drag racing on it previously. I've heard a few people say that it gets one run in before damaging the motor. Their motor did get damaged doing some I don't know, what was it, roll racing or drag racing
Yeah,
at
something like that.
an airport. We believe it's the standard type of B9 failure with a cracked piston that then took out, you know, the rest of the cylinder. But we have not seen an engine tear down, and we don't have any data on it yet. So I believe they will be doing a follow-up piece. We have supplied them with all the parts to do a built motor, and they're interested in going the built motor route, so they can push things even harder. And at stage 3 high output numbers, you do really need a built motor if you want to ensure you have you know, the best reliability. The factory pistons have been shown to be weak and to have cracks, and we will actually be posting more about that in the future.
Mhm.
But of course, it hasn't stopped the trolls and I don't know, a lot of crazy people from posting online this morning about it, blowing it out of proportion and trying to mischaracterize it. Like I said, the awesome guys are still engaged with us in the project and understand, you know, that there is an inherent liability with these motors when you're pushing those kind of numbers. But it was not the first run. That's not true. And again, like I said, I haven't seen their video, so we will be posting lots more information about it. Nothing that we will shy away from. Our tuning is good and safe, and we know that these failures aren't being caused by our tuning. And so I'm sure we'll be able to verify and validate that once again. No different than the other motors that we've analyzed and seen. And again, this is on other tunes as well. This is on factory tunes, on stock motors. Occasionally, the factory pistons are cracking. So there will be a follow-up video from Awesome documenting more details about the engine failure and their full engine build. And we're confident we'll get them back out there running some world-class times with their built motor setup. All right. Y'all making me want to change from my custom tune to 034 Stage 3 Plus. I hear nothing but good things. But being I have a 4M.5 Q7, I need some testimony from these folks. I'm 572 wheel now. Yeah, so, you know, definitely reach out to us. We'd be happy to talk to you more. We would love to see some more 4M.5 Q7 3.0 Ts out there. Yeah, so definitely let us know. We'd love to work with you. If I upgrade my Gen 3 1AT high pressure fuel pump with your 2.0 T pump and vacuum housing, will I need a tune for it to run properly?
Absolutely, 100% has to have a tune. It's not just a piston size change or anything like that. The complete control structure around that pump is inverted from the between the 1.8 and the 2.0 liter style. They're different manufacturers, different controls, everything is different between them as far from a control standpoint. So if you don't do the calibration for it, the ECU is going to request more fuel. The pump will give you less. It's not a great way to run, and you absolutely need to have a calibration designed for that pump that's in there.
Mm-hmm. Just a quick housekeeping thing. We'd like to remind viewers, if you need any help or support, to email contact@034 Motorsport for any order status questions. We currently have a 4 to 5 business day lead time for order status. This is our current Black Friday customer service response time based on record load of incoming emails, most we've ever had in the company history. If you need tuning support or you need tuning account assistance, that's tuning@034motorsport.com, and that's about 2 business days response time. And tech support for any hardware support needs is tech support@034motorsport.com, and we have a 1 business day response for that. So, you know, we're putting more effort towards the people who have their parts and need help with it versus the people who want to know when it's going to show up. In many cases, I mean, every order is going to ship as quickly as it can based on our inventory level.
Yep.
So if it's in stock, it will ship the same day.
They were getting like an astonishing amount of orders out
Yeah.
from that sale too for all the install stuff.
Yep. I just went stage 2 on my Mark III 8S TTRS with all 034 parts in tune. Congratulations. And it's very quiet on deacceleration. Deceleration, especially at higher RPMs. Almost no exhaust sound, no drama or crackle. Is that normal?
Crackle stuff will depend on driving mode and your settings through your on the vehicle itself. You can kind of change all that in the MMI. If it's not crackling at all ever, hit us up. We can take a look and see if there's a reason that could be. But no, I mean,
make sure you test it in sport mode.
I'm not sure. Almost no exhaust sound. There's generally not a lot of exhaust sound on diesel because it's very, very little air.
Engine's off.
The engine's in shutdown and in vacuum essentially. So you're not going to get a lot of raucous events other than the crackles, like you said. But if you think it's not right, hit us up. We'll take a look at things.
Yeah. In theory, if I flash the car but drive it casually and never in load, does it change anything from stock calibration in terms of reliability?
No, not at all.
Yeah, it's basically
no difference. We'd have no reason to go in and do anything that would affect that under light load. That is all stock or as very close to stock as it can be, given whatever hardware components are on there. So yeah, no, there's shouldn't be any change at all.
Are B9 S5 tunes compatible with the C8 A6 since it's the same engine?
Engine-wise, yes. Transmission-wise, they're very different. So it's something we are working
on. And they don't, even though they have the same engine, they don't always run the same.
Calibrations aren't necessarily the same. No, they'll move things around depending on platforms. But yeah, it's fundamentally the same. It's more the transmission stuff we're dealing with.
What do you think about number 2? Do you want to get into that? That's kind of interesting.
Yeah. So someone's asking if they have logs from us that state 770 Newton meters of torque, whatever RPM, and trying to figure out horsepower. They're trying to back calculate it to figure out horsepower. Those values inside or whatever's being logged, I would not equate those to like at the wheel numbers or at the crank numbers necessarily, depending on what you are. That is a modeled number that is used. Some calibrations from the factory are closer than others to like a real world number, but it's more a factor of load, you could say, that roughly correlates to a real world number. It's not like I wouldn't use that for any kind of like I'm making X amount of horsepower because my ECU says it's making this much torque in this one variable I logged.
Yeah.
Those torque values will go through. There's literally I would say a couple hundred versions of that torque value within most of these newer ECUs, from optimistic torque, most your max efficiency torque, all the way down through to friction loss torque calculations, oil weight, viscosity. They try and model everything as much as they can to get everything to be exactly the same in all conditions. They aren't modeling that to be a accurate, 100% spot on dyno calibration number. It's not far off, but I wouldn't use that for that purpose.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to think about, but like Nate said, that's not what that number is used for. It's not a horsepower and torque calculator. So you're kind of taking some real liberties interpreting that as the real number.
Yep.
Just be careful, but
it's calibration.
It's modeled.
I would consider it more of a factor of power. And some of the platforms from the factory are closer than others, but I've never used that as a measure of horsepower.
We certainly don't. When you see if you want to know how much power our tune produces, look at our advertised numbers. Those are going to be
it's measured on external equipment.
Pretty accurate, close estimations. Anything we should jump on? I have 5 minutes left. Let's see. Does a catback help with stage 1 tune on a B9 A4? Depends. There's no such thing as a catback. There's this exhaust or that exhaust or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you were able to completely eliminate any exhaust restrictions from the factory exhaust, it would stand to reason that you would make some more power and the turbo would be more responsive.
The biggest thing on the A4 is just being able to hear the motor. If you're especially on track with those things, or any kind of spirited driving, being able to not have to look at the dash essentially, because they'll pull nice and clean all the way through the power band. But if you can't hear the motor, you don't know where your shift points and whatnot necessarily should be. So it's more of a driver mod than outright power on those.
Yeah, it's a nice thing to do, like Nate said, but we don't recommend or require it for stage one power.
Mhm.
The factory exhausts flow quite well these days.
Yep.
All the factory cars, like B9 S4s, are making 700 horsepower through the stock exhaust. Just installed your front and rear sway bar kit on my B9.5 A4 Allroad. What is the proper procedure for adjusting, setting up the end links? What is preload?
Great question.
So preload is if you connect one side, the end link on one side of the car, the other side, the end link should just slide in without preloading the bar, right? So if you have to bend the bar to get the end link in, you just added preload to it. And what that's going to do is that's going to add an effective spring rate to the car that you don't necessarily want there. The sway bar is not there to provide spring preload. It's there to equalize the weight transfer from left and right side of the suspension. So by using our adjustable end links, you can dial out any preload that's there by changing the length of the end links. The length of the end links doesn't really matter. It would have to be way off, there would have to be substantially different for it to matter. So you can make these small adjustments. As far as setting it up, if you're kind of new to sway bars and handling, I would recommend just setting everything to soft, the softest setting, which is always going to be the hole furthest out from the bar, the longest lever, the most leverage on the suspension to enact its forces. And then, you could try putting the rear in stiff and the front in stiff, putting them both in stiff, and just see how the car feels. In general, the stiffer you make the back, the more the car will oversteer when you lift off the throttle and turn. So if you go into a corner and lift, that you're going to feel the rear end be more lively or come around. So yeah, just have fun with it. But even in full soft, it's going to transform the way the car drives. You're going to love it. How often should I be logging and sending in logs?
That's completely dependent on your situation and if you're changing things rapidly or if there's some reason. But yeah, I mean, I'd say the vast majority of people, it's a one and done or checking on some things very, sporadically here and there.
Yeah, generally it's a need.
Yeah, these files are very, thoroughly developed and before deployment. So, we don't have any kind of like prescriptioned logging routine. It's going to be a case by case and by need basis.
What is the coldest temperature you can run your catch can before creating back pressure? Looking to get one for my Mark 6R. Generally, if you live in an area where you get below freezing wherever your car is parked, we don't get that in California. Even we do get some nights where it goes.
Yeah, you'll get it up in like the mountains and stuff. But
but it's not enough to really freeze the engine solid through. And then by the time the morning comes, things are warming up. But if you're in an area of the country where like your car could be subject to 10 degrees or lower, and your car just really freezes up, what's going to happen is all the water inside your engine, and you have quite a bit, is going to freeze. And this is water in the air, condensation from different temperature surfaces inside the engine when you start it. So when you start your engine, your block is freezing cold, but the air inside the block begins to heat up rapidly. This results in condensation of water. That water eventually makes its way into the breather system, and that whole thing is going to freeze up. The catch can, since it's separate from the motor and sits apart from it, will freeze up. And if you have a lot of water or condensation inside your catch can or the lines, then they can block up. This is why we typically recommend in regions like that to just remove the catch can system in the winter, since you're not really driving the car under load and you don't really need it. You can remove it and then put it back in when things warm up. But this is definitely an issue where it gets really cold. And if you have your car in a heated garage in the winter, you're fine. You're not gonna have a problem just driving around or parking briefly outside or something like that. Also, the longer longer driving events you do, the better. The more everything heats up into the engine compartment. It's those short drives in the winter. If you're just driving 5 minutes here or there, that really cause those problems.
And that's more of a problem also in more ways than that. You can get condensation and whatnot, and fuel systems and whatnot. That is certainly a thing if you're in super cold climates.
Yeah. I think we're out of time.
Yep, we are. I'm gonna grab some controls here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we didn't get to everything, but
We're after.
hopefully we touched on.
I think we got most of everything.
We got a lot of
some
it.
update questions and things like that. Though. So cheers, everybody.
Yep.
I don't know about next week.
Yeah, we got some
Wait,
stuff going on.
that's gonna be. I think I'll be out of town.
Okay.
No, I'll probably be back. I don't know. We'll play it by ear.
We might be around where we might see you in the new year.
Hope you guys have a great holidays and Merry Christmas. Cheers.